Hello and welcome to the Relax It's Retirement podcast with your host, Josh Leonard, where we talk about transitioning into retirement with intent. I'm Wendy McConnell along with Pete Belcastro, and I'm going to give a warning. I have a feeling things are going to be a little crazy today. I just have a feeling. I know my fellas. When I see them before the show in the green room and they're acting all goofy and, they think they're cool, it's going to be a crazy show. So fasten your seatbelts.
Fasten your seatbelts. This is going to be a wild one today.
That's right. It's a exciting topic, so get ready. Hold on.
You know, we get real revved up when we talk about things like estate planning. No background noise came in. Okay, yeah. Well, it's exciting to us, and I do think it's an important piece of a retirement plan. Many times when people think of retirement planning, they think of, how's my 401k, right? It's just focused on that investment plan, as we'd say, or an income plan. Great. I save money. What am I going to do to get money out of that plan? We view a retirement plan as 5 different pieces. So we have that investment, income plan, health plan, tax plan, because no one wants to pay more than is necessary, and then your estate or legacy plan. So today we're going to talk about estate planning. Many times people don't think about this much as a transition piece into retirement, but we do think it's critically important. For many folks that we meet with, they'll tell us, hey, I updated my will like back when my kids were little. Do I need to do that again? And the answer is yes, you do. You need to revisit these documents. So today we're going to talk through estate planning. Are you as excited as I am, Wendy?
I got to tell you, if you called it legacy planning, I would think that that's way more exciting than estate
we can
planning.
rebrand it legacy
planning.
planning. Yeah. So I would say, to me, the difference between estate and legacy is estate is more the legal end, and legacy can involve other things like documenting things that you want the next generation to know. So I would say there's a little bit of difference. Today we're going to talk about the legal stuff, which maybe isn't quite as exciting.
Yeah, the legal and money stuff. Yeah, and that's, whenever people are transferring, from working or transitioning from working, into retirement, a lot of the conversations about how am I going to pay for all this stuff now? And it's hard to think about, hey, guess what? There's going to be a lot of this left over. If we knew what your expiration date was, it'd be a lot easier to plan, and there wouldn't be an estate. You just end on 0 there at that date, and it would be done. But we don't know that. So part of estate planning, I think, is just convincing some of our clients that there is going to be an estate. There's going to be things that you need to handle whenever either you're incapacitated or you've passed away. So so it's a huge piece of what we do, even though it's not the most comfortable thing to talk about, with some people, but it is necessary. And even though your clients or you might be focused on, well, what am I going to need for income? This is a good piece of the puzzle that once you get it set up, it really relieves a lot of pressure and stress once you start digging into some of this stuff.
Yeah, and I think that, whenever I first started in the business, we used to say that, life insurance is for your loved ones, not for you. You don't buy life insurance for you. You buy it for the next generation or for your spouse or kids or whatever it might be. An estate plan is the same thing. You are just trying to make things a little bit cleaner. If you don't create that plan, well, you provided no direction to the next generation. You aren't able to control anything from the grave. You aren't protecting family members. Maybe we have some cases where clients maybe have a child that has some sort of substance dependence or a gambling problem or something that leads them to make poor financial decisions. So, go figure, putting a bunch of money in someone's pocket like that isn't going to make them better off. It's going to make them worse off.
That's right. Yeah, you have somebody that's younger, that would be a little irresponsible, like probably we all would if we got a lump sum of cash or a big windfall whenever you were 17 or 18. So you can really help out your beneficiaries, and other family members a lot if you do take the time and think about this stuff.
So what should we be doing then to, make sure that people aren't getting money before they should, or not letting it fall into the wrong hands? What do we do about that?
Yeah, I think so. Just basic level of direction. We want to set up our essential documents. So those are going to be our will, our power of attorney, the living will, and then the HIPAA authorization. This is sort of our baseline level. We'd say for everyone preparing for retirement, make sure these documents are updated. If we're not doing these essential documents, our assets are going to go to probate. A lot of people are afraid of probate. We'll hear from clients, oh, well, can I avoid probate? Well, probate is just, a judge making a decision based on certain framework, based on the individual state of how that money should go to the next generation after you pass. And that costs 2 to 7% of your estate. So that's just extra money you don't need to pay, or your loved ones don't need to pay in settling the estate. So those essential documents can help avoid that. The will, if we think of the will, it's just you testifying. Your last will and testament is the full name of the will. It's you testifying what you want to happen with your stuff. So your property and assets, what do you want to happen? Well, you can write it down there. You can nominate a guardian for your children, if you still have minor children, or your pets. Maybe that dog is pretty important, and you want to make sure that the dog's well cared for. Don't leave assets to your dog, but you could have someone care for the dog.
That's right. And that will, or you're listing benefit. You can list different assets in there to go to different places. We can actually do that outside of the will, by adding beneficiaries to accounts. And those beneficiaries, if you do add things outside of a will, they supersede a will. So you can have beneficiaries listed on different things that are different than beneficiaries within a will. So, just
that's
another
a great
little
point,
piece of
Pete.
that.
That's a common misconception. People say, oh, well, my will says everything goes to my kids, and but your 401k, where all your money is, goes to your ex-wife. So let's update. Let's make sure that beneficiary is the same as the will. Now, outside of retirement and financial accounts, you could put in your will a car. Maybe you have a collector car or some personal property that you could say, hey, at death, I want this to go to this individual family member. It's common in family that you say, oh, grandma's jewelry is going to go to so-and-so. Well, great, write it down so no one can argue it later. Again, that will is that testament. It's what you want to happen. I think another one that is certainly essential is that power of attorney, or the POA. The POA it's a legal document appointing someone to act on your behalf. That's kind of an important thing if you're unable to make decisions. So this, comes into play prior to death. But like for my grandmother, she was in a nursing home for several years before she passed away. And my mom needed to manage her affairs. She needed to pay bills for her, keep up to date on the taxes on her property. It actually included selling her house and a lot of different things. She needed the ability to act in her best interest as a fiduciary on her behalf. You need to do the paperwork so that someone can do that when that time comes.
Yeah. If you're already in the hospital or you can't speak, really can't put together a POA, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that is really important to, have those tough conversations, say what I want to have done. And that needs to be done ahead of time. There's no option to do that whenever you need it.
Yeah. And again, these are things that sometimes people will say in a family. So, oh, well, if something happens to me, Wendy, you take care of the bank account. Make sure, I pay the school taxes. Well, if you don't have the legal authority to do that, that becomes very difficult for us as advisors. If we know one of our clients is in cognitive decline, and we have that POA not exercised, but we have a copy of those documents on file, we could reach out to, maybe it's the daughter or the son that we know is meant to act on that behalf, and just say, hey, I don't know if dad's doing that well now. Maybe we need to check in on him. We know that we have this document on file. Is it time? And help them evaluate that decision. If they do exercise it, then we will need a copy of that in order to be able to authorize any transactions or changes on that account. Without that, as Pete noted, if you're already like in the hospital, unable to make decisions, we get kind of stuck in this legal flux, and it can tie things up and make things a nightmare for your loved ones. So get a POA, right?
Get a POA ahead of time. Yep.
So just do it.
Just do it.
Just
do it.
Yeah. And it's not just for assets, or what, what your wishes are. Obviously we get into that living will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the living will and the HIPAA authorization really go together. And this is to give some medical directive, right? That expresses your medical wishes. So what you want to happen if you're incapacitated, unable to voice your opinion on your medical decisions, it allows someone with the HIPAA authorization to see your medical records to help make educated decisions on your behalf. But you could also say, I want a do not resuscitate order, or any specific medical wishes, whether they're religious or whatever it might be. You can dictate that so someone else isn't making those decisions for you.
Yeah, I see your face, Wendy. So it's I think we all know, if we were going through this situation and we had a loved one, and you're looking at that plug in the wall, or there's different hate to say it that way, but it just makes it so much easier. Just imagine your family going through the potential of losing you, and and now they have to make a tough decision to say, hey, what if we if we keep dad on this and he comes back, he's not going to be able to walk again, or he wouldn't, he'll be paralyzed or if you already made that decision to say, hey, do everything you can, I don't care if I'm a vegetable, I want you guys to come in there, or if it's, hey, you know what, I don't, if it's going to affect my quality of life, go ahead and shut it off, it's my decision. So you make that decision before your family's already in a tough situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pete, I think you bring up the best point with all of this is these essential documents just alleviate a lot of the issues that families have when a loved one is in decline or passing away, right? You are giving them that direction, so they're not stuck to make those hard decisions all on their own. It's hard enough when you're dealing with the loss or decline of a loved one. The day-to-day care sometimes is a bit too much for folks. So preparing it ahead of time. I think this is many times clients will come to us and say, oh, I just went through this with my parents. What can I do to make it easier for my kids? So again, let's think of this as one of the building blocks in that transition to retirement. Let's do a deep dive into this again, now that we're transitioning into a new life phase. I think another big thing is tax planning and using estate planning for taxes as well.
We all love the tax man.
Yeah. What would a podcast be without some tax talk, right, Wendy?
That's right.
Well, I haven't heard one yet, so.
Don't worry.
It's
we
always
got you.
Yay!
It's always those fun things. It's, talking about paying those taxes, after you're not even on this planet,
Yeah. I think estate tax is something that people are pretty afraid of. I mean, estate tax can go up to 40%. So that is terrifying to think of, oh, I'm giving almost half of something away. Right now, the current exemption before federal estate tax comes into play. Now, each state has different rules too, so you have to be careful there. But just talking about federal estate tax, it's $13.61 million per person. So it's not a problem for me personally. That would be nice if it was. For many folks that we work with, that's under their estate, especially considering if they're a married couple, that's doubled.
Okay. So you won't have to pay taxes on that up to 13.1. Is that what you're saying?
The federal estate tax exemption, so what's not considered taxable by the federal estate, is 13.61 million. Now, each state
Okay.
has different rules there as well.
Right.
But yeah, that's per person. So like Josh said, I mean, you're talking about over 26 million. And if you have grandkids, well, guess what? You could do generation skipping and get another 26 million. So, so I think for most of us, over 50 million in potential tax-free inheritance, that'll cover it. So yeah, so the federal side, it's not too much to worry about. You really have to focus on your individual state, when it comes to the estate tax there.
Yep. And I think being wise. So, we've had a few clients where they've had liquidation events from things like businesses or shares of businesses that are highly valued. They might not be very liquid assets, but maybe we're looking at getting close to that limit. And in the past, that limit's been lower. It's been as low as 1 million. So if there could be an issue, we could look at strategies to start gifting that money. Pete has mentioned giving to the next generation. We can look at establishing things like trusts to start gifting that money away now. If we gift it now while the exemption is high, it counts against the exemption at current level. So if they lowered it 20 years from now down to 1 million, and you've already given that money away, it doesn't matter. You followed the exemption at that time. So great, check that box there. If you have substantial assets that might be a concern. If you're giving money away into something like a trust too, you can have a lot of control. So for estate planning, especially for larger estates, trust can be a great tool that you can get things out of the taxable estate, but still have some level of control. When you set up that trust, you could say, hey, I don't want Johnny to spend it in Vegas, but if Johnny wants to go back to school and get that master's degree that he's been talking about for the last 15 years, he can tap into the trust money and use that money at any time. At the beginning, Wendy, you had asked, what do we do about, family members with addiction or gambling problems, whatever it might be? We can use a trust to dictate how that money is distributed. You have a lot of freedom there. When you set up a trust, you're setting up a separate entity. And that separate entity, you can write the rules on. Of course, there's some limitations there. You can't, have total freedom. You'd need to work with an attorney to draft those individual. But some of the interesting ones we've seen are things like W-2 matching, where, hey, I'm glad that my kids are going to inherit a lot of money, but I don't want them to be spoiled brats, or my grandkids. I want them to still have to work and have somewhat of a normal life. So they can only take out of the trust up to a certain percentage of what they've earned at a job. So if you're earning, maybe you're a teacher and you're earning $60,000 or $70,000 a year, fantastic. You could take 50% of what you earned out of the trust as well. Well, for most folks, I think that'd be a really nice life-enhancing thing. Yet at the same time, you're not frittering away the money on, over-the-top luxuries, and then all the money's gone and you're destitute.
Yep, some nice, really interesting, features that you can have within a trust as far as maintaining your control and I mean, you're taking care of your loved ones, while you're after you passed away. So I think there's a lot of comfort that a trust can offer, in the right situations.
Yeah, you can dictate at certain ages as well. We've seen that where you could distribute a certain amount at a certain age. I know, especially for myself, if I inherited a bunch of money at age 18, that probably wouldn't have been good for anyone other than, some sales guy, maybe a car salesman, or I don't know, something not very well educated in using money. Because that's what happens with people, right? You grow up, and that's why you don't have money when you're young, right? You need to learn those lessons, sometimes the hard way.
Right.
So setting up distribution rules there can protect people a lot. Or maybe you say, hey, I worked really hard for this money, and one of the successes that I had is that I was the first one in my family to go to college. So I want to make sure that all of my descendants have some money towards college. You can use it as an education fund. So having that desire is really cool. And when we think of more of that legacy that we talked about initially, Wendy, that falls into play there. Hey, you know what? I want to make sure that all of my future family members get some money to help pay for their education and maybe a little bit to help with a down payment on a house or something like that. You know, these are things that I wish I could carry on as a legacy.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yep. I think another tool often used in estate planning can be life insurance as well. So life insurance, you know, when you're in my life stage where you have young kids, life insurance is used to cover that loss of income, or maybe covering a mortgage if something happens to you, you know, if you or your partner pass away, to make sure that you can raise your kids and sustain your lifestyle. In retirement, well, hopefully you don't need that at the same level unless there's a pension replacement or something like that. But sometimes life insurance can be used as a tool to pass money on tax efficiently to the next generation as well. So we've had some clients where they have the required minimum distributions, like we talked about 2 episodes ago, where they're forced to take money out of their IRAs. So a fully taxable asset, they have to pay tax on it. They can use some of those proceeds to buy something like life insurance, where if they passed away, or when they pass away, the proceeds from that life insurance policy can pass on to the next generation tax-free. That's nice because that would, like in the state of Pennsylvania, that will help alleviate some of the state estate tax rules too, to help reduce your overall taxation. So, you know, life insurance can be another tool there. Trust can also be used to help alleviate nursing home spend down as well. So if you're worried about spending down assets to go into the nursing home, and you're worried about maybe leaving a partner or your loved ones without any assets because you're going to spend it all on care, you could transfer things over into something like a trust to help remove those assets from your estate. There you want to be careful.
Yeah.
There's lots of rules, right? There's like a 5-year look back, so you can't go into the nursing home.
Look back rules.
Yep. And then throw all the money somewhere else. It doesn't quite work that way.
Like we were talking about earlier, that, you know, that, so right there, you already have a time frame that, like, you can't wait to do this. You got 5 years, you know, if you want to try and put some money aside for these type of things, you know, just speaking of that nursing home, you know, that look back is real. So this is why you need to get these things in place as soon as you can, you know, because we never know what's going to happen. And if that's the goal for the money, you got to do these things early. So if you needed a time frame, you know, we say do these things before you're incapacitated. Well, maybe you're thinking, well, gosh, you know, I could do that the day or two before. No, we're talking about like years, and in this situation, 5 years.
Yeah.
So you got to really have that forethought. You got to be in the planning. You know, you got to make sure that you're thinking about the future now. You can't wait.
And I think, you know, like we talk about a lot, Pete, the bottom line is you need to plan ahead. So in looking at that preparation for retirement, that transition into retirement, now's a good time to look under the hood at all this stuff, right? Let's take a look. Let's review whatever estate planning we did in the past, and let's make sure it's up to date and that it fulfills our current wishes. Once we do that sort of deep dive as we transition into retirement, we should be revisiting that at least every 3 to 5 years, right? Maybe family dynamics change over time. Maybe now you have grandchildren and you kind of like them more than your children. So 529 plan, Wendy, 529 plan. Maybe you want to change some pieces within your estate plan. It's good to just review it. Those major life changes, maybe you get divorced in retirement. Okay. Again, we need to update those plans.
That's it. You don't have to, this isn't setting it in stone. You know, this is a working thing that, you know, oftentimes, people's needs, their family dynamics change, their family maybe grows, you know, there's a lot of things that could happen. So this isn't something that's written in stone. You don't have to say in the back of your head, like, well, I don't know who I want the Mustang to go to. I'm not going to make that decision, you know, because So anything could happen. Well, if you make that decision now based on how you feel, how things are going right now, you can always adjust that in the future.
Yep. Yeah, so it's a good thing to review. We think it's a key piece of your retirement plan. So as you're building out that plan, let's talk through those. At the Leonard Advisory Group, we're not estate planning attorneys. Let's be very clear there. But we can help quarterback that process. So we can help say, hey, you know what? You really need to get these essential documents that we covered today: the will, power of attorney, living will, and your HIPAA authorization. Outside of that, maybe you're considering a trust. We can help educate you and connect you with an attorney, a local attorney, or some resources to dig a little bit deeper to see if that is in your best interest. If you have questions around estate planning or would like to dig deeper, you can schedule a 15-minute call with Pete or I to discuss, hey, what direction should I go there? Where can I look for more resources to move forward? If we touched on some other things like life insurance to help leverage your estate that you'd like to talk further about, use that 15-minute phone call to open up the gap here and help learn a little bit more. Be sure to check us out on our website at leonardadvisorygroup.com. If you're not already subscribed to the podcast, make sure to do so and check us out on YouTube as well. Until next time, thanks for listening, and we'll see you then.